Welcome to Working Towards Our Purpose, a podcast that offers a different perspective on what a job can be. For everyone out there that's heard that voice in the back of their head asking for something more, it's time to listen to it. I'm your host, Gino, and join me as I interview people who have decided to work in their own purpose. Together, we will learn, become inspired, and hopefully find our own path towards working in our purpose. Cory Reynolds is the founder and owner of CRC Guitars. He's a woodworker by day and a custom guitar builder by night. And as a fellow guitar player, I'm really looking forward to getting to talk guitars. Cory, welcome to Working Towards Your Purpose. How you doing today?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Doing well. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to getting to talk guitars a little bit later on. But first, if you could just kind of like tell us who you are, where you grew up and what kind of schooling you had and that sort of thing, interest as a kid, maybe.
Oh yeah. Well, from the beginning, I was actually homeschooled. I have like zero formal education. And, but building things has always been a passion of mine. Didn't matter what it was. Legos, just started there. But grew up in Connecticut, northeastern Connecticut. Been playing music for 20 something years, building things. That's kind of it. I mean,
Nice. What was homeschooling like? I don't know that I know anybody that's been like homeschooled before. I feel like it could go both ways. It could be either like cool because you can have flexibility around your schedule, or it could be like awful.
It was interesting. It was a little weird, I guess. I don't know. I mean, I did whatever I wanted pretty much all the time. So, I was out in the woods building forts or out, building dirt bike jumps and things like that, bicycle jumps. But, did my schoolwork in the morning and got it out of the way and then just did whatever I wanted for the rest of the day. So it was kind of nice. I mean, I have 3 other siblings, so it wasn't exactly lonely, but it was different. But I don't know, it's quiet and sheltered, I suppose. But yeah, flexibility. We were always going places and doing things, so it was interesting, but I don't have much to compare it to.
Yeah, sure. That's definitely a good point. So like once you finished your schooling, did you like finish on time with like a normal person who would graduate high school?
I finished a little early actually, and then just started working full time, like from the age of 16, more or less. A family friend had a construction company. They gave me a job because, I had to build something. So I started working for them, learned as much as I could. We built houses, did everything from the ground up, everything in between, electrical, plumbing. It was pretty great. So I learned all kinds of things. So, but, that's just what I like to do. I like to learn things, build things, create. And it was a great starting point to do anything really.
That's awesome. That makes me ask a question. When you are being homeschooled, do you get to choose kind of like what you're interested in? Because I mean, certainly the downside of like traditional schooling is like you have to do this and you have to do this for a set amount of time, and then we don't care about what you're interested in.
Kind of. I mean, at the time, because this is more than 20 something years ago. It's a long time ago at this point. It wasn't super structured because the state actually wasn't involved so much. Like now it's a little different. It's changed, go through programs and whatever. So my mother was in charge of the curriculum, whatever she felt like teaching. So, which was kind of nice. It's like, oh, you don't need to learn that, but this is important. So we focused on more important things, I suppose. But it was less structured and more, this is what you really need to know. Got that out of the way. And then, did whatever I wanted after that.
Yeah, no, that's so cool. It's very interesting. I'm sure it completely changes like your perception on what you find important and giving you probably more voice of like doing the things that you care about versus just like what you're supposed to be doing.
Right. Yeah.
So when you first got into like working, you said you started work pretty early. Did you ever think about like going to further schooling or?
Not really. I mean, that was kind of one of those things like, oh, I was homeschooled. I got the education I needed. I already knew what I wanted to do at that point. So I didn't want to go into college getting any further education. It didn't feel necessary at the time, because I was like, I already want to build things. I want to build houses. That's what I wanted to get into. I don't do that anymore, but I already had an idea of where I wanted to go. I was like, I don't need that. It was kind of a different perspective, I suppose. And in a way, I almost regret it, but not really. I'm doing pretty well. I'm where I want to be as far as where I'm at currently, almost.
Yeah, cool. So you started building like houses and stuff for family, friends, company. How long did you do that for?
That was, let's see, it wasn't too long. It was maybe like 5 years that I worked for them. Then I ended up getting married and moving away, working for another relative in a construction company for about a year. But then I ended up getting completely out of construction altogether at that point. That was around 2008 when like the recession started, and like there was no construction work to be had anyways. So I ended up getting a job that I ended up hating. And that's actually kind of how it got me into guitars.
Oh, interesting.
Very roundabout way.
Do explain more.
So yeah, I started working for a cleaning company. We specialized in kitchen exhaust system cleaning, which is dirty and disgusting. And just it was a job, and I was there for 8 years. So I mean, it paid the bills, but it was just it was the same thing every day. It was very repetitive. It wasn't scratching my creative itch, just like, oh, it's dirty again, go clean it again, whatever. But they did other things like floors and all kinds of like janitorial style cleaning. But at some point, I was just like, I hate this, it's very unfulfilling. And at that point, I had moved away from where I grew up. So I was at the time playing in a band with my brother and a friend. I'd moved away from that. So I wasn't playing any music and I wasn't doing anything creative. And I kind of realized that all at the same time. So I was like, I need to do something creative, but I also want to play music. And then it just kind of clicked one day. I was like, I should build guitars. It was kind of strange. Like I wanted an electric guitar. I couldn't afford one. It's like, I should just build one. And that's not cheaper than just buying one. Found that out very fast. But I kind of just wanted to do it anyways. So I started building one just to, do something creative and then be able to play it later. That one's still unplayable. But like that's kind of how it started. Like I wasn't playing music. I wasn't doing anything, and just kind of came together. And it made sense. So I just started building one.
Do you remember, and maybe not, but do you remember like a thing that like triggered that thought to be like, wait a minute, what am I doing here? I'm not doing any of these things that I enjoy doing.
It was just, I wanted to be playing. I don't really, I mean, this is over 10 years ago that happened, but I just didn't, I wanted to do something. I knew I wanted to be building something. I wanted to get back into construction or something like that, but it just wasn't going to happen at the time. But I also wanted to be playing in a band or just playing music in general. It just, I was just kind of, I don't want to say depressed, but just, just hated what I was doing for work, and I just trying to scratch the itch of, creating something. And it all just kind of clicked one day, like just build one. It was never my intention to like start a business and, build them all the time. But I enjoyed the process of it so much. I had to learn everything about it. I just like dove head first into it. That's unfortunately how I am with everything. It's like, oh, I'm going to learn this. Well, I'm going to learn all of it. But that's probably my ADHD a little bit.
Yeah, no, well, someone said that that's a good skill to be like focused enough in on it to do it. I think that's a positive skill for sure.
Yeah, I tend to hyper focus on those things and just go for it. And I had to learn it all.
Yeah. And I'm certainly familiar with the feeling of like, doing something for a long period of time and like finally realizing that like, oh, this is not what I want to be doing at all. So you said like almost depression. For me, it was almost some of that, but like also like just a sleep sort of thing. Like so much time goes by and you're like, what am I doing? I don't even remember what I did the last like 5 years.
Right.
So
that's exactly. It's like 8 years doing the same thing constantly. It was so monotonous. You're just in a groove, just going. It's like, yeah, it's just like going to an office. It's the same thing, except for I was just at different restaurants every other day.
Yeah.
So it was annoying. I know where to eat though, and I know where not to eat.
For sure. More importantly, where not to eat.
When you see behind the scenes everywhere, it's a little scary.
For sure. So talk to me about music too. Like when did you first get into music, and like what part has music played in your life?
Yeah, I mean, music is it's a huge part of my life. It's probably one of the most important things to me. I think I started playing, I don't remember exactly, I was like 12 or 13. my younger brother and I both started taking lessons at the same time. I actually started on bass. That's mostly what I play. I'm not very good at anything, but we started playing together. He's a little bit younger than me. He's like 2 years younger than me, but we were taking lessons simultaneously. He was playing guitar, I was playing bass, and it just made sense that one of us picked one of those instruments,
Mhm.
And because we were learning at the same time, we were learning at the same pace and learning the same songs, stuff like that. And it just, progressed like that. We played very well together because of that, I think. So we were fairly young, listening to stuff like Led Zeppelin and learning all of those songs and whatever. And a few years later, he's still one of my best friends. He's a drummer, and we just started playing together, doing that. This is, 2004-ish. So right in the middle of the emo, screamo
Mhm.
boom. So that's kind of the stuff we were playing at the time too. So, but yeah, like we started playing very young, and music was a huge deal. I was just actually talking about this the other day about Led Zeppelin. My brother, we had stolen all our dad's old tapes, and he had a copy of Physical Graffiti. And for an entire summer, he just played that every night before bed. We had shared a room too, so it's like that album is burned into my brain at this point.
Mm.
It's just like, it started there and just, progressed. And we were always playing stuff, within the rock or punk or metal type vein, I guess.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of similar in that way where me and my brother, I have a twin brother, and me and him both kind of like picked up guitar at the same time. And like, I know what you mean by like, we never really like took lessons together, but eventually we started playing together once we were like, I guess, competent enough to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But then we like, I feel like it's easier for us to just like kind of play with each other. Eventually he picked up drums, and like we would go back and forth with them. So yeah, music's kind of a cool thing. For me, it was super important. Like, in middle school and that sort of stuff, I really got into like metal and it being like super expressive and that sort of thing. So yeah, music's always been super cool and important to me as well. So what got you like eventually into woodworking, and like, was it guitars that got you to like
Yeah.
do more like fine?
It was actually, building guitars is what got me the job I currently have, because I still have zero formal training in woodworking, because, I was doing carpentry before, and those are not the same thing. Woodworking and carpentry are completely different. But, I started building guitars, but it's like I had to learn so many other woodworking things. It's like I figured, oh, I know how to do that. I can use saws and things, but it's so wildly different, you know, building a house versus furniture or whatever. But I was started making these guitars, and my wife's uncle, who I had actually worked for that 1 year, like in 2007, 2008, he had gotten a job in a wood shop not too far from here. And he was telling me about it. I'm still working for that cleaning company. I'm like, if they ever have any openings, let me know. And he's like, I'll see what I can do. Like a few months after that, he was like, yeah, one of these guys is like leaving. He's moving across country or whatever. So we're going to have an opening. So I immediately called the guy that owned the business, and so the guy, you can come in for an interview. And I went and interviewed. He's like, well, you don't have the skill set we're looking for or whatever, but thanks for coming in, basically. Okay, whatever. Like, I had showed him pictures of the stuff I had built. He's like, it looks nice, but we're looking for somebody who has, formal training in this. Okay, whatever, fine. I understood that. And then like a month later, they were like desperate for somebody. He's like, he just was going to hire me just to be there, basically. And I learned everything I possibly could. That's what I did. I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to learn everything I can about woodworking. And I'm kind of running that shop now.
Nice.
Don't want to brag. I'm not, but
What kind of stuff are they making?
they make garden structures. So anything outside, like mostly trellises. We do a lot of custom pergolas, like bigger, fences, gates, arbors, anything that would go in a garden outside. That's what we do. We do a lot of commercial projects. So like really big ones that are going to apartment complexes in Boston. We've done a lot in Manhattan, like rooftop stuff, lots of crazy stuff like that. But it's relatively high end for what it is. So, but that's what we do.
Nice. Is it a smaller type of company or is it bigger?
Yeah. Currently, there's like 5 employees on the shop floor, so fairly small, yeah. But I mean, it's a little slow at the moment, but it usually is during the winter. Most people aren't thinking about their gardens or anything like that, their yards this time of year.
Sure. So tell me about like what the first guitar was that you ever built, because you said like you've quickly found out that it's not the same skills, and I imagine a lot of it has to do with precision.
There's a lot of precision. The first one I built was made out of plywood. It's still hanging in my shop right now in a place where it's like, if I'm ever feeling like, not that good at this, it's like, it's right there. Like, that's how far I've come. It's right there.
Nice.
But I bit off more than I could chew with that one. So, but like, I wasn't exactly precise. I didn't have the tools to do it. I just kind of like hacked it away with whatever I had and just kept borrowing things from other people. But yeah, I tried to paint it like professionally in my basement, which didn't work out so well either. But yeah, I bought most of the things. Like I bought a net because I figured, oh, that's difficult. There's no way I'm going to figure that out. You have to be extremely precise with all the measurements on your fretboard or whatever to put the frets on. And I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that first off, and that was fine. But just like nothing lined up right. I was just figuring it out. I'm not selling myself very good right now, but
No, it's a learning
but
process. I think that's the cool part about it, is that like you start from somewhere, but then the
right.
fact that you don't give up and then you learn how to figure it out, like that to me is inspiring. Like I'm inspired listening to you.
Once I got it together and I realized, oh, this is never going to happen, I immediately started on another one. Like I knew where I
Mm.
screwed up on most of it, so immediately started on the next one. As far as I know, that one's still playable. I wanted to build one, but I was like, I don't have the money to just go buying parts all the time. So a friend of mine, he's like, I will give you the money. Well, the deal was like, I will build you whatever you want. Just like pay for the parts. You don't have to pay for any of the labor. I'll just build it. And so it did. And as far as I know, it's still playable. He hasn't called me to be like, hey man, this thing fell apart. So, but like that was the second one I did. And like halfway through the second one, I decided to start another one like during that project because I was enjoying the process so much. It's like, I just got to keep going because I still hadn't built one for myself yet. I'm building a second
Mm.
one, but now that's for somebody else. But the whole point of that was to build myself one. So, so I started on another one, and then I was working on those like simultaneously. And that one's still in my basement and not playable. But again, I bought another neck, online. That was my mistake. And at that point, I realized, like, you know what? I can't keep buying these necks. Then it's either you spend way too much money, going to like Bournemouth or whatever, and buying theirs, or just build it myself. And at that point, no, I still hadn't gotten that woodworking job yet. This is 10 years ago at this point, so the timeline's a little sketchy, a little fuzzy. But yeah, I decided at that point, how hard could it be? I could just build. I could do it. It can't be that bad. And at this point, I'm compiling more and more specific tools to do it properly, and just constantly researching how to do all of this stuff. And I'll have to try to remember which one was the next one in that series, because I keep biting off more than I can chew every single time, because I'm just like, well, I should do this and do that, and just keep adding features that just I should have kept it simple, but I never did. And that actually helped me learn more because I just needed to dive in and just go for it. So it might have been the two 7 strings that I built, which are both still, they came out really well. They're both still very playable. People have them. So I still haven't built one for myself to keep yet.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So basically, you've kind of just built them, and then as you're building them, other people are like, "Hey, can you make me one? Hey, can you make me one?" And it's
Pretty
just been like
much.
a iterative process.
It just keeps happening. Yeah.
Interesting.
It just kept happening. They're like, oh, I love that. Can I have it? I'm like, yeah, sure, whatever. Keep selling them
Nice.
to people, which
Nice.
which works out.
Yeah. I do want to ask you too about like the, I guess, attitude or mentality of like kind of like believing in yourself more than like the things that you're seeing. Cause like, for example, the necks, you buying a neck and it like is garbage or it doesn't work or something. You're like, oh, I'll just build it myself. I'll probably figure out how to do it better than that. Like, do you know where that kind of mentality comes from? Cause there's certainly people who like have the opposite mentality of like, oh, I could never do that. That's way too difficult. I can't do that.
That's just kind of how I've always been. Like I was just like, I can do that. I can do it. Why not try? The worst thing that can happen is you're gonna either fail and then try again, or maybe it'll work out. But I don't know. It's just I've always kind of just thought, I can do it. If other people can do it, I could probably figure this out. It can't be that hard. It's more about having the right tools and things, and those tools may be inside you, not physical like saws or whatever. You know what I mean? Just other people do this all the time, so it can't be that hard. Everything's possible as long as you set your mind to it. Just set your mind to it. Just go for it. I feel like I should have better words for that, but it's just I'd been listening to another podcast for a while. It's just two guitar builders talking about their processes, and that's like one of the things he said, because one of the guys, he worked out of his garage for years. He's like, if I could do this, because he had a corporate job, like he had no woodworking experience at all, and he was like an accountant or something like that, and he was building guitars in his garage. And it's like, if I can do this, anybody can do this. It's not that difficult. Just take your time, be careful. Just measure 6 times and cut once. It's wrong anyways, and do it again.
Yeah, that's awesome. You'll have to let me know what the name of that podcast is. That sounds really
It's unfortunately no longer happening anymore, but I think it's archived online, but I can send it to you because it's still very interesting.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, that does speak to just kind of like the belief that anything really is possible if you really want it bad enough. I feel like anything really is accomplishable.
If you want to, play guitar, it's not that hard. Sure, it's difficult at first, and your fingers will hurt, and it's like you'll come up with some kind of hurdle, and you'll come up with an excuse. If you want to have an excuse, you'll come up with an excuse. But if you want to get it done, you'll find a way to get it done. And that's kind of the attitude I bring to it. And it's like that's why I keep my first guitar hanging up there, just to remind myself, like, you can do it. Look how far you've come. Like, keep something there that reminds you that you can do it. You can do just about anything.
Yeah, I like that a lot. Especially it's relatable for like people like who want to learn how to play guitar. So many people have said to me like, "Oh, that's cool. You could play guitar, but I could like never I can't learn how to do that." And I'm always like, well, it's like, I didn't know how to do it either. Like, it's just, you just do it a couple times and like get better and better at it. And you just got to like want to be able to do it bad enough.
Right. Dedicate the time and persistence, and just surround yourself with people that do the things you want. Surround yourself with musicians, surround yourself with other people that build things, learn from them, and then the motivation will be there.
Yeah, totally. That's another big part of it, I think, too. And a big part that I found like within like business or like entrepreneurs, meeting other people that are doing those similar things. And then, because then it helps you kind of get through the more difficult times, because it's like, oh, I'm not the only one who's struggling with this thing. Like this guy's also struggling with it, and he can or she can almost help you get through it if they've been there before. So community's been like a big aspect for me and my personal growth.
Right. It's very important. Yeah.
So you mentioned that like you kind of just been building kind of per request on like what people want. Have you ever had to go out and like try to sell your guitars, like market your business, or like?
I haven't yet. I'm still kind of in the beginning stages of the business side of it. Really, it's still basically a passion project right now. Like I do this in my spare time. Eventually, that's the goal, is to go full time, and I'm getting closer all the time. I have big plans, hopefully, for later this year, but we're getting closer all the time to like just jumping full time into this. It's just getting the word out there, getting more, exposure. I try to get out there, bring stuff to shows, put it in people's faces as much as possible. I just want to get them in people's hands, but we're getting there.
Yeah, I imagine part of it too is like if you're the one kind of doing all the work, there's at some point like a cap of like how much you can actually physically build.
Right. That's the thing. And that's my big plan for this coming year, because doing it in my spare time, with a full-time job, with a family, kids, dogs, all that, I don't have as much time as I'd like to be able to devote to it. But the next step is to get a CNC and make that do most of the work, So that's going to be a whole nother learning curve. Now I got to learn, software. But if I can get that to do 90% of the work in a couple hours versus, days of me spending little bits of time here and there, then I can, batch them out quicker and get things done. The faster I can build them, the better, really.
Yeah, totally. So when you design like a body of a guitar now, are you like hand sketching it out and like hand measuring it?
Yeah, I draw them out full scale because you can draw it out, small or whatever. You can draw it on a computer, but for me, it doesn't translate as well. Once you can draw it out full scale and really get a feel for it, it makes such a big difference. And even after I've drawn it, like I have to cut it out of something and then like actually be able to see what it looks like. Put a strap on it, and, like hold it onto your body and be like, this is kind of what it should feel like. But the design process you'd think would be pretty simple and straightforward, but you change little lines here and there just because it doesn't look right. But yeah, I draw them out full scale, measure everything out, and that seems to help. But even then, I've drawn out things full scale and like, I hate this until I cut it out. And then it's like, just a little tweak here and there. And then it's not so bad.
Yeah, no, that's got to be like a interesting process to like go back and forth. Cause I mean, there's like your traditional guitar shapes, but you don't really make, or I haven't seen at least on social media, is like your body shapes are like very interesting and they kind of like stand out to me.
Yeah. There's only so much you can do within that, the framework. I mean, you have a neck and the strings and the bridge, and it's like you can only go so far without it looking really weird.
Right.
So it's like you can go weird, and there are people that do that, or there's only so much you can do that it just looks like a guitar that it has to fall within a certain range to be comfortable and playable and not look awful, but still have some of your own personality in there as far as design. But there's only so much you can really do. So it's like, yeah, I have one that's kind of like a Strat shape and Telly and Les Paul, but they're not like those at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
One of my focuses on that is to be ergonomic, as playable as possible. Like I have one that's Les Paul shape, but it doesn't feel like that because it's like I hate playing Les Pauls. They're one of my favorite to look at, but they have their issues. They're always like falling off your lap if you're sitting down or whatever. So I tried to balance it better, get more higher fret access and make it more comfortable. Just get rid of all of its issues, but kind of some of the look. That was kind of my idea. It's like it shouldn't be fighting. It should be as easy to play as possible, but has to look great too. If it doesn't look good, you're not going to pick it up. So looks are extremely important, but playability is the most important.
Mm-hmm. Totally. And so do you have like a couple different like models that you continually make, or do you always make like a different shape?
My idea when I started to do this was like, just make them custom and do whatever I want all the time. But then that gets very, very difficult to do because then you're always designing something or you're leaving it up to the customer, and things can get a little weird then. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but but yeah, I designed a few things, and those are like my standard custom shapes that are mine. That like if you want to do whatever within that framework, we can do that. I can make it an 8-string if you want, or change whatever bridge. That's where the custom aspect comes in. It's like, this is my shape, but whatever you want to do within that, we can do that. We can make it happen. So like every detail is up to you basically.
Is it much more difficult to make like an 8-string or 7-string guitar versus a 6-string?
Not really. It's all pretty much the same. It's very straightforward. It's just more wood.
Yeah. More wood, more strings.
Pretty much. It's all basically the same thing. You start with a center line and work from there, and that's it. Just adding more or taking away something. That's all woodworking is starting with wood and subtracting.
Interesting. So what do you think has been like the most challenging thing as far as like learning how to make a guitar?
Patience.
Patience, yeah.
You get it to a point and you're just like, I want to put this together, but you still have, a lot of sanding or painting, the worst parts, patience, just take your time with it, make it right. Do it right the first time. You don't have to do it again. So patience, that's probably been the hardest thing. And I am not a patient person because of, many reasons, but
Mm-hmm. I have been checking out like your social media stuff, and I noticed that like, you do a good job making reels when you can. And I did notice that one of them seemed to quote unquote go viral. I was wondering if that like had any positive effects come from it.
No, I mean, yeah, I think I know which one that was the one where I was pulling that giant thing out of my basement, right?
Yeah, the big piece of wood, the knot. I think it had like over a million
views.
Over
1 million views. Yeah, okay, hold on, I found it. Um, let me just confirm how many it has. 1.3 million, which which mind blowing. Most of my videos are like 200-300 views. And like that one has nothing to do with guitar building. But yeah, I got quite a few followers out of that actually, but not as many as I was hoping, but a decent amount either way. But yeah, that piece of wood is actually being turned into a bass right now for my son. So,
oh, nice,
or at least a part of it. That was a really big piece of wood.
Yeah. Nice. And because of it was kind of a knot, right? So
it's a Burl, yeah.
A Burl, okay. And that kind of gives you the nice tops that you find on guitars?
Yeah, it'll give you all that curly stuff. A Burl, I mean, if you want to get into the science and whatever, it's basically it's a disease on the tree, and it's a growth, almost like a cancer, and they kind of grow off the side of it. But the wood gets all very twisted, and the grains just twist around and stuff like that. And they look really pretty when you slice them nice and flat, depending on which way you slice them.
So what's the difference between that and a flamed maple top where you got the straight lines?
Well, that's actually stretch marks. So the tree has been flexing and things like that, and you'll get those little stretches in it. And then you slice it out of that. So basically the grain is actually wider and more open in certain areas and then tighter in other ones. And that's why you get those. And quilted maples, I'm not really sure how that one works, but it's similar, but it's more curled around, things like that. But
interesting. Is that something that you can get more into once you've figured out how to make guitars, is putting nice tops on them and stuff like that?
I mean, that's easy enough. It's just if you want to spend the money, because those things are very expensive.
Okay.
When you see those on guitars, you go to the store and see them, they're usually very, very thin veneers. They're not full tops unless you're spending a lot of money. If you go to I don't know, PRS, most of those they're thick full tops, but you're paying a premium for them. But 90% of the time they're just sliced so thin that they can get as many out of them as possible. But yeah, I mean, I've done a couple of flame tops, and they're just expensive. Yeah, I tend not to do them just because it's cheaper.
Sure.
Depends on what the customer wants to pay for, really.
Mm-hmm. Right. And so what's the process with getting a new customer? I imagine convincing them first to buy the guitar, and then
yeah, well,
how's the design process?
I've had it go a couple of different ways. I sometimes just get this out of the way real quick. I'll build a spec build, just something I felt like building, and then put it out there hey, it's for sale. And people are yeah, I'll take that. That's great. But yeah, the process usually is somebody will come to me and be hey, I really like your work, and I kind of want something like this. But then, it's just go down the list of everything. The average guitarist doesn't think about all of those details. They're just I want a purple guitar. Okay, but do you want, this fretboard wood? How many frets? What do you want for a bridge? And they're oh, I didn't think of any of that. Yeah. So it's just me asking so many questions. I need to come up with a form and put it on the website and just check all that stuff off, man. But yeah, it's just a lot of questions and every little detail. And the more you can provide me with details, the better. But I've also had people I just want kind of this, and you just run with it. Just go for it, whatever you think. And it kind of needs to be this color-ish. So whatever you think. And that can be difficult because now it's all up to me, and now I got to make all these decisions. And then it's oh, I hope they like it. But when it's a spec build and I'm just doing whatever I want, it's a little simpler. But I did have one like that a little while ago, where they just gave me basically free reign. It's a friend of mine that I've known for 20 something years. He's good friends. You know the band Paris? They're from Boston, Lowell area.
Okay.
I think they all live in London now. But my friend, he grew up with them. He's I want to get this guitar. I want you to build a guitar for my friend as a gift. So he just had me build it. He's just left-handed, and that's all I had to go with. Well, it's just give me as much information on the guitars he already owns, and then we'll build something completely opposite. And that's what we did. He's I think it should be this color. So we went with a random blue, but it was completely different than anything else he's had. So, and I'm still waiting to go to one of their concerts and watch him play it. So
Nice. Yeah, I think I saw that video on Instagram because his friend like surprised him with it, and he like
that's
cut it up video, and like that was a really cool moment. That must have been cool to like see him like witness it for the first time and be like completely blown away by how cool it was.
Yeah, that's my favorite part of building. Actually, is it's not necessarily the build process. It's like seeing customers' face, like when they get to see it for the first time. Is that's got to be, from their perspective, such a weird experience. Like if you wanted to buy a guitar and you walked into a music shop right now, you're going to get to pick it up and play it. But if you want to buy one from me, you're not going to get to touch that thing until it's done. So hopefully you like it. So it's kind of nerve wracking for me, but like also weird for the customer. But I haven't been on that end of the experience.
Maybe one day.
Maybe someday. Maybe I'll get somebody to build me something so I can actually keep one for myself. Yeah, and then I'll surprise myself with it. But yeah, watching people play them on stage is probably my favorite part of the whole process, because it's I liken it to like watching your kid play sports or something. Like that's my kid playing football, but that's my kid on stage, being played. So weird analogy, but I suppose, but it's it's kind of the same thing, which is also nerve wracking. Like I hope nothing bad happens with it while they're playing.
Right. That's interesting. So I would think that like guitars are kind of like maybe a similar way. I don't know if this is a good analogy, but like in fashion, for example, like when somebody's like wearing your thing at some famous event, they like, then you kind of get known. Is guitars kind of the same way? Like if you get a guitarist that's in like a pretty famous band to play a guitar, and then all his famous guitarist friends are like, oh, what's that?
That's what I'm hoping for, because it's like you're not going to get that from the audience. Like they're going to play a guitar on stage, and 90% of the people there to watch him aren't musicians, so they don't care what he's playing. You're going to get the nerdy guy that's like, what's that, trying to look at his pedal board, that guy.
Yeah, that's me.
but yeah, me too. But I'll see a weird guitar like, ooh, what is that? Is that, looks like this, but it's, can't see, I'm blind. But yeah, I think it's like getting it into their hands and getting their friends to see it, like getting their tech, to see it, and getting those are the people that I really want, getting their hands on it. So getting it to the guy from Paris, like that's a big deal for me. In December, I had a guitar that I built. I had built it for somebody, but unfortunately they couldn't, they had to back out on the deal, which is fine. But I just had it. I kept trying to sell it. But it was kind of, it was like multi-scale and kind of weird. Like the average person was a little probably much for them, but I was just hanging on to it. I got to get rid of this thing. And I was just like, I should just give it to somebody at this point. So I was seeing one of my favorite bands. I was like, you know what? I'm going to give it to them. So I was the weird guy after the show out on like the sidewalk, just waiting for them to come out while they were unloading. Like, hey, I have a guitar for you. Like, what?
That's awesome. What band was it?
Rivers of Nile.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Guys,
so
I'm wearing their shirt.
yeah. So did they take it and like play it or give you any feedback or anything?
I haven't heard from them yet, because I didn't want to be that guy where like, here, I'm giving you a guitar, let me know, whatever, follow me on Instagram. Like I gave it to them, and trying not to be the weird guy that's, stalkerish, but like, look, I just want to give you this to you just because, you've given me a lot of music that I enjoyed, and I want you to have something, and just take it. I don't want anything back from you. So I haven't heard from them. They might have taken that too seriously. But I mean, I know they have it, so whatever, it's all good. But like they're like they're not like super famous yet. They're still like coming up. They have like 4 albums, but they're not huge yet. So like I talked to their singer, who's also their bassist, and I'm giving him a guitar. I'm like, I was kind of hoping to talk to the guitar player, because now I feel bad that I'm not giving him a bass. But he was like kind of surprised, like, you just want to give us a guitar? I'm like, yeah, just here, this is for you. And like I assumed he was like, what is this? Just like some kit guitar piece of crap? I'm like, he didn't say that. It's just like, that was me automatically assuming they're thinking this is some crazy person with some piece of crap that he built. I pulled it out and showed it to him. He's kind of blown away by the whole situation. Like, wow, for real? You're just gonna give this to us? Like, yeah, take it, enjoy it. I just want somebody to play it, because it's not doing me any good sitting in my house going nowhere. Like I don't have time to play it. That's the one that I could have kept for myself, but but yeah, like just getting it into somebody's hands. So like hopefully that goes somewhere maybe. And I told him like maybe I'll build you a bass now. So now I have plans to build a bass for him, but he doesn't know about it yet. And he'll never listen to this probably.
I'll DM it to him on Instagram.
I don't know.
That's funny.
I'm still not crazy, you know.
That'd be cool if one day you see him playing it on stage, though.
That would be pretty great. Yeah. So that's the goal someday, get more famous people to play them. So,
so as we're kind of coming to the end of our time here, I do like to ask, like, what's the future of, what's the future of the company or the business or what you want to do? Because I do think there's power in like, envisioning what you want to become. So where's the future of CRC Guitars?
So like I said, I have big plans for this year. Get a CNC machine, start, pumping these things out. And the goal has always been, quit my job and just do this full time, get a separate shop away from my house, or maybe, at least not inside the house, and just, be able to do this full time would be amazing. That's the goal. That's the plan. And the sooner the better. But I'm always making little steps going towards that. So I don't know if you saw it on Instagram or whatever the other day, one of my ideas for the future, I want to start a YouTube channel, which I want to be able to point to my stuff. But like the whole idea of it is to be able to help other people. Because I mean, not everybody, most guitarists are broke as it is. They're not going to be able to afford a custom instrument. We're talking thousands of dollars. But, you want to go buy something cheap, but cheap guitars always suck, right? They always have something wrong. You could go buy a Squire and it's fine. But like people are always looking at these cheap guitars on Amazon, and you see these channels on YouTube all the time. Like, I bought the cheapest guitar on Amazon and see how much it sucks. And they always suck. But like my idea, my take on it was like, yeah, there's so many people already doing it. That's fine. They can keep doing that. But like, I'll take it. I'll review it as if you just bought it. Be like, okay, this is what's wrong with it, but here's how you can fix that. Most things are fixable. Like that's like another mentality I have. Everything can be fixed. There are no real bad guitars unless like the neck is twisted or something. It may be cheap, but you can still make it play it, and you can still make it comfortable. But here's how you do it. Like this guitar, if you bought this one, it's got this problem, or at least mine does, the one I bought. And this is how you fix it. Let's go through something like that. Because let's face it, if you're buying cheap guitars, you're not planning on bringing it to somebody to pay them to fix it. You're buying a cheap guitar because it's cheap. So I'll try to like fix it and show you how to fix it with something you probably have instead of my hundreds of dollars worth of ridiculously specific files, because there are tricks to get around things. And if you don't own all that stuff, because most people aren't going to spend, $500 on nut files because you have to have every single, gauge string, which right. I did because, if I'm going to do this, you got to have all the right stuff. But like, that's one of my ideas and where I'm planning on going forward, but it's still, very much in the idea process. I still have to dedicate an area to like set up, something to shoot video for, and then, get some cheap instruments. But like, that requires audience participation because like, I could just pick something cheap online, but it's like, what were you guys looking for? Were you looking at a specific instrument, but you're, afraid to pull the trigger on it because it could be a piece of crap? I'll do it. But if I keep doing this, I'll end up with, a stack of cheap guitars. So I'd either have to like, flip them, sell them, or, give them away to subscribers or whatever. So
yeah, that's a good idea.
Give them away to somebody that could actually use it. So now it's cheap guitar, but now it's been, professionally set up. Air quotes. I have a hard time calling myself a professional. It's, the imposter syndrome thing. I mean, I've been doing it for long enough to probably call myself a professional, but that's that whole thing.
That little voice in your head tells you can't.
Right. Yeah. Like you're an idiot. You're making this up. You learned everything you know how to do this from YouTube, That's another one of my goals for, the coming year. I don't know when that's going to start, but that's part of it. So and I'm hoping that, that brings more traffic into my stuff. That's a big problem beginners have, and why they put them down. It's like you buy a cheap guitar thinking I'll learn how to play this, but cheap guitars are hard to play because they're never set up, properly from the factory. They're actually set up worse on purpose because they have to do less work to it. So, it has high action. It's, hard to play. Ideally, you would bring that to a professional, have them set it up so it's easy for you to play. But again, you're beginning, most people don't even know you can do that kind of stuff, have that done,
Right.
especially if you're brand new to it. So like to have somebody say, this is a cheap instrument. If you're a beginner, this is how you make it play good enough. And then you'll want to play. If it's comfortable and easy to play, make all the difference, and then you'll keep playing. You'll actually learn, because for a lot of new people, like the hurdle isn't necessarily how hard it is to learn how to play the instruments, how to play the instrument itself. And if the instrument's fighting you, like I was saying before, it shouldn't fight you. The thing should play itself. Kind of.
Yeah, totally. I remember the first guitar I ever bought, and it was horrible. I didn't even know what action was, but the strings were like, an inch and a half off the fretboard.
Right, exactly. Yeah. It's like most people don't know that there's a truss rod in there. You can adjust that. They'll leave it in their car overnight and it gets cold and things move. And now it's like, oh, what? It got worse. How did that happen? Like, so like that, like I want to be able to give back to the community in that way, but still, do something fun, hopefully help my business. It's got multiple facets for why I want to do something like that.
And like you said, I think it's just like multi-purpose. I think that's
right,
just beneficial for everybody.
Right.
The reason that like we found out about each other is because of the hat you're wearing. Because my friend Josh, who I used to be in a band with, always used to wear that hat. And then eventually I just asked him, I was like, what's CRC Guitar? Like, I never heard about them before. And then he told me about you. And then we eventually met at one of the Deltosa shows. But yeah, it's part of it too, is the branding,
Right, exactly. Yeah, try to get these. I'll send you one. Just DM me your address later, and I got like a whole stack of them.
Oh, sweet, that'd be awesome.
but yeah, I mean, like that's the thing. Is just connections. Like, I knew Josh through my brother. Now, I know you through Josh, and hopefully that it's just little connections like that is what's going to build it. So like that's my other goal. Just keep making connections, and that's going to help build absolutely everything. Because that's all this has ever been is, person to person. I do better with that than anything I've done online.
Yeah, totally. There's definitely, it's, I guess, a necessary evil, maybe online stuff, but yeah, I'm with you. There's like, far as like human interaction is like way better than
right.
digital.
I mean, you can see somebody's videos online, but you're not going to get, the personal, you're not going to get somebody's personality out of that. I mean, I try to put as much of it as I can on there, but it's a much bigger impression in person. So
for sure. And then the last question I have for you is a question I like to ask everybody, is what does purpose mean to you, and like define it in your own terms?
I guess, music is being such a big part of my life forever. I mean, I was never good at writing it, okay enough at playing it, but just keeping it at the forefront. I knew it was always something I needed to be involved with. So like, if you know what you need to be involved with, I don't know, stick with it. I mean, it's whoever you are as a person. I don't even know how to word this. It's such a tough question. What does it mean?
No, I think you were onto something there. Like, I think it's the thing like that, you need to be involved with, because this is completely off topic and I might just lose your whole train of thought, but
I've already lost it. It's all right. I don't even know where I was going with that.
There's this guy that I followed for a little bit. He had like YouTube videos on like music production kind of stuff. And when I was learning how to like engineer, I would follow his stuff because I liked the way that he like explained things. And he always said like when he was younger, he like loved Soundgarden, he loved Chris Cornell, and he wanted to be, a rock star when he was younger. But then he got to a point where he realized, he was like, well, it's probably not going to happen. Like, I'm not that great at playing music or writing music. But then he found he could teach people how to record music. And that was like how he kind of like twisted his dream of like music to be involved with music, but like not be a rock star. So it's kind of like, I feel like that's kind of
that's exactly where I was going with that. It's like, yeah, maybe I wasn't going to be the rock star that I thought I was going to be. I wasn't going to be playing it, but it's like music is who I am. It's everything from how I dress to everything else I do. It is my purpose, I guess. That's what it is. But and as long as I'm involved in it somehow, maybe I'm not making music, but I'm making the things to make the music, and it's helping other people. So it's like I might not be the painter, but I'm making the brushes. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so like,
yeah, totally.
That's I guess that's what it means. I still don't think I've answered the question, what does purpose mean to me, but like that I feel like is my purpose, is to something with music, and as long as I'm involved in it somehow, I guess that kind of, I don't know.
Hey, it's a good enough answer
All
for
right.
me.
As long as you're satisfied with that.
And that's all that matters. Well, I appreciate your honesty and, your perspectives on everything and just explaining how you think about things. I think that to me is helpful for me to learn, even though you may not see it. Like for me, it's like inspiring for me to hear how you think and hear how you work and like think about things. So yeah, I appreciate you like explaining everything for us.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
Yeah. And then just last thing, like where can people find you online if they want to follow you?
I'm CRC Guitars on just about everything. Instagram at CRC_guitars, on Facebook, CRC Guitars. There's another guy on Facebook called CRC Guitars, but it's like CRC Academy or something like that. I'm not that guy.
I'll make sure to find the right link and then I'll put them in the show notes so people can just do the clicking. Again, thanks so much for your time and good luck with everything with CRC Guitars.
Thanks.
Thank you for listening to Working Towards Our Purpose. If you liked today's episode and are interested in more, you can sign up for my Substack newsletter with the link in the show notes, where I share thoughts, tips, and ideas that I'm learning along my journey to help inspire you. The show was produced by Pleasant Podcast at pleasantpodcast.com.